Our next speaker is Laura Sanchez from the Dominican Republic.
Obrigada pelo convite. And that's where my Portuguese stops. I'm sorry. We are going to have to continue with the phonologically challenging English. Sorry about that. My name is Laura Sanchez, and I'm a Dominican neuroscientist from the Dominican Republic. I work at the Universidad Iberoamericana, and I'm an alumni from the Neurocognition of Language Lab in New York City. So I studied electrophysiology to see the difference in brain activity when you learn to read as adults. So we're working with a population of illiterates and neo-literate. So I was living in New York for 7 years, and I moved back to the Dominican Republic last year. Actually, this week is my anniversary week to be in the Dominican Republic. And I found a different country, I must say. And these are the things, I have found in terms of adult literacy coming back now. So the first thing is that adult illiteracy rates have dropped. Not necessarily because adult literacy training has gotten better, but because they have died, not really, but because educational system is actually getting much better. It's not perfect, but we have better care for children now. Therefore, illiteracy rates are dropping. So right now, that's 2010, that was around 10%, and right now it's about 9.7, around that. So there's the map of the distribution of adult illiteracy. Of course, it's more. The less socioeconomic status the region is, then the more illiteracy rate, I would say. Of course, you will see that the 10% is only for Santo Domingo or Santiago, which are big cities, and the one right next to Haiti, it has higher illiteracy levels. We don't know if that has to do with immigration. That's a possibility. We have immigrants that are literate on their own language but not Spanish, or are illiterate in both languages. So that's a possibility as well. But overall, the illiteracy rate in the Dominican Republic is around 9.7 at the moment. So this is what I found when I moved to the Dominican Republic. It became a higher priority for the Dominican government to stop this. We need to stop illiteracy. We need to drop illiteracy rates as much as we can. So in 2012, government launched the National Adult Literacy Program, Quisqueya Aprende Contigo. Quisqueya is a name that Aboriginal communities used to call the island. So that's a pretty symbolic name, and actually the national anthem has Quisqueya on it. So it's a pretty symbolic name for all of us. So Quisqueya learns with you. So it's a literacy program. It's a national program, and it's mobilizing the whole country to try to bring illiteracy rates down. So the objectives of this Quisqueya Aprende Contigo program, they want to reduce illiteracy index from 9.7 to 4% by 2014, that's tomorrow, and by 3.5% in 2016. So it targets people that are 15 years or older. Those are the ones considered adults. And they want to enhance organization and social participation. And again, they want to contribute to elevate the quality of life. They haven't mentioned contribute to better reading, just to make sure they're not called illiterates. One thing I need to mention also is that when we see these statistics, we need to understand that it's self-report illiteracy. So this is the census. I go to your house, knock at your door. Do you know how to read? Yes, no. That's it. So probably if we do a proper assessment, these rates would be higher, unfortunately. So back to Quisqueya Aprende Contigo. They are focused on literacy, and they want to take people who just learn to read and write to get basic education, middle school education, technical and professional skills. One other thing that we need to understand is that the illiteracy population in every country is very heterogeneous. So we have people who never ever went to school because there was no access for communities, people in the countryside. Also, we have people who went to school but failed, and there was no way to diagnose them with any type of learning disability, such as dyslexia. I mean, we're just learning about that now in the Dominican Republic. And also, we have people who went to school and did fairly well, but then forgot. So we have this mixed group of people that we want to put them in the same batch without a pretest, without an assessment before they enter this courses, and then they get into the system and they leave the system, and we don't know results yet. So the system is not designed to do this. So at least they have something, right? I found this in the Dominican Republic. They have an initiative. It's a big initiative. It's not perfect, but it's much better than what we had before, which is nothing. So, you know, private companies or maybe private people who were involved with the cause, they were doing illiteracy, but not in a national level. And now we have that. And that is an, I used to talk to them and I say, even if it doesn't work, at least we're doing something for people's dignity. And that's important as well. So what I want to do right now is just to mention a little bit, I mean, can research actually tell something to these people who are making policies and making educational projects and programs? Can we actually inform them? My part of the scientific world is neuroscience. Can neuroscience inform anything to them to create better programs? So I want to share with you a little bit about the struggles I'm finding in the Dominican Republic and from the Dominican Republic, only to be able to ask this question. So I want to ask, can I as a researcher say something about the way they're doing this? Because to me right now it doesn't seem that it will work. Maybe yes, maybe no, but there's no way to test. But what do I have to do to know if there is something that we can do, right? So I want to share a little story with you. So this is an experience that happened to me like 2 months after I arrived in Santo Domingo. I went to the government just to know about literacy. I mean, I had just finished a dissertation about neoliterates and reading automaticity and the brain, and I was so academically excited about this. So I go to them just to see what's going on, and I actually did something that any researcher should not do when they approach politicians. I talked about my study. So here's how it went. I sat down and I smiled and I said, so my name is Laura and I study N170 visual word specialization in people who are neoliterate, because you know the literature suggests that people who are neoliterate don't reach automaticity, and there are areas in the brain that show that difference between when you see symbols and words, and the activity from the left occipital temporal cortex is not quite, I mean, it's really important for you to understand that research has so much to give this, because your people are not going to read eventually. So we need to do something together. This is going to be great for you. Silence. So he said, of course, you know, that was an error from my side, but he said, oh, this is interesting. You seem to be a very smart person. And I'm like, thank you. But we're actually not interested in this right now because, and this is the answer, and it was a smart answer to me, because you're talking about such a small thing. I mean, a small thing. You're talking about word recognition. I mean, at least he got that I was talking about that from all the scientific jargon that I put in him. He understood that I was talking about that. So at least he knew that. He said, we need a bigger picture. I mean, I know you want reading and that's okay, but we run a literacy campaign. We need to study social impact. And I'm like, but I thought this was a reading course. And then yes, but literacy is not only about reading. Literacy is about transforming people's lives. And we need to understand. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm not caring enough about people. I started to feel guilty from his answer. So the people who are driving this machine, they don't see the importance of of doing research on such a small area. So of course I went back home and I felt destroyed because, you know, it's like my life's practice is word recognition and people's lives is much important, which is true. But how am I going to tell these people that even if it's just word recognition, it makes sense to study, we can do so much better. So by then I was just destroyed. Then I went to the scientific community, because we do have a scientific community in the Dominican Republic. It's a new thing, it's a Vice Ministry of Science and Technology. So I said, these people, they will understand. Of course they will. So then I did what experienced research would do. I shut my mouth off. I didn't speak a word. And I let the guy talk. So after I listened to all he has to say, everything about science, that's what he was talking about, I said, well, I'm interested in studying neo-literates and the way they process information and the way they recognize words. And then I give him a little bit of the scientific jargon, not too much, because it's okay. I mean, not all scientists are neuroscientists. So I give him a little bit of this, and then he mentioned something that was very important to me. He said, that's very interesting. You seem to be a very smart person, but I'm going to give you an advice. And okay, you can give me your advice. If you're going to apply for a grant on this area, then you should mention social impact. So people want social impact. Science doesn't want such a social impact. What's going on? What is going on? What do I need to do to make sure these two areas come into place? That goes with what Dr. Grigorenko was saying. How can we integrate this? It seems so disintegrated. Right, but in the meantime, while I was, going through this, oh, by the way, this has been reported. Actually, Dr. Abatzi have said this before. I mean, literacy departments care more about the organization and the motivation and the social impact than actual research. So, when I was living, it was in the literature. But back to the question, I mean, what can we do in neuroscience to help with this? So there has been like 5 or 6 studies, important studies about neo-literate. And I want to make sure we know what neo-literate is right now. In the United States, this population is called low literates because you assume that everyone goes to school and fail, and then they become illiterates. In other countries, in other developing countries specifically, some people just never go to school. And what we call neo-literate in this line of research is people who never went to school and now are going to school as adults. So that's the population we're working with. So we have found many things. I mean, Carreras and colleagues in 2009 found that even when you learn to read as an adult, you can modify your brain. I mean, the brain gets modified by reading, regardless of the age. It is just a little bit different from people who read and write as children. So the same thing, Silva and Núñez and colleagues in 2009 found almost the same thing. I mean, they activate the areas for reading, but it's quite different. It's more bilateral. Dr. Dehan and colleagues as well, he found that visual word form area, it gets active. So do other areas in the brain. So it seems that when you learn to read as adults, your reading regions get active, but it's harder, it's more difficult. You need to involve more areas, you need more resources to make sure you're actually doing the task, and that has some costs in terms of your ability to automatize reading, right? So this little evidence is from my dissertation. I'm going to talk about that tomorrow, so I'm going to go like fast on this. On tasks that are related to reading but are not dependent to reading. If you see on the top, that's the neo-literate group, and in the bottom, that's the literate group. So I compare people who learn to read and write in childhood with people who learn to read and write in adulthood. So the top one didn't present any difference whatsoever between symbols and words. Symbols are just graphics that you could, you know, process with bilateral, right or left. It doesn't matter. But words, since they have this linguistic component to it, if you're an automatic reader, then it gets shifted to the left. So this did not happen with people who are neoliterate, with people who learn to read and write in adulthood. It did happen, of course, in our control group, which is people who knew already how to read. So left lateralization in automatic reading. When we forced these people to read, when we made sure they were reading, instead of seeing a left specialization, we saw a not significant right activation in the left occipital temporal regions. The people who knew how to read, of course, they had left hemisphere activation versus right. The interesting part of this study is what everyone else is saying. When we checked in other regions of the brain, we found the top is the frontal, the bottom is central, left is the study group, and right is comparison group. So that people who are neoliterate in frontal and central regions have more activity in the left hemisphere. We still don't know how to interpret this because the tasks that we used are not necessarily to elicit this type of finding. But what we can say is that people who are neoliterate are working harder and using more cognitive resources to do their to do reading tasks.
Laura, 5
Yes,
minutes.
5 minutes will be. So what don't we know then? So we know that they read differently. We know that they're not automatic, but we don't know why. We don't know if it has to do with instruction or it's a biological constraint. We don't know how they manage to get automatized because we don't know if they do it. And we don't know what works and what doesn't. And I think that's where neuroscience fits in. That is where we can, that's where we can bring the conversation. So, you know, what happened in these two conversations I had in the beginning? What happened? Did we get lost in translation? Did I use too much of a scientific language and they were not able to understand that, or the other way around? I mean, both languages are very, very different. Also, what are we going to do about this disintegration? I mean, policymakers, they want high impact, fast impact, access, and innovation, while scientists, they want, you know, research-based impact, tested methods, controlled methods, and innovation. And I have found one word that brings both words together, and that word is technology. Everyone wants technology, and the Dominican Republic is a high-tech country. So, you know, we have cable, we have cell phones, we order from Amazon, we do really badly in pizza, but we have all of these things. I know. We are really good at technology, I must say. And actually, not only policymakers and scientists, private companies are interested too. Wow, we're going to do some charity now, we're going to do some science as well. How good is that? So, you know, from the policymakers, technology means access. Access means flexible education. Flexible education means massive. Massive means social impact. Perfect. From science, technology means precision. Precision means control. Control means research. Research means publication. Publication means grants. Grants means publication. Publication means grants. Grants mean publication, and so on and so forth. So it's the perfect combination for both of them, and it's working pretty good in the Dominican Republic. So can brain research inform educated policies? Yes, but only if they let us ask the right questions. Only if they allow us to see the population. Only if they fund this type of research. And also, we need to create a platform for collaboration between both of them. I mean, it's very important for them to understand that we're not a threat, that I will never say, you know, stop any campaign until we test what you're doing. We're not doing that. We can't do that. We're here to collaborate. So if they open the window so that we can do research using their big platform to our small controlled research, then we will, you know, eventually be able to inform literacy practice. So that's about it. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you.